So today we're going to start our review getting ready for that MCA. Remember, it's next week, so we have several days to get ready for it. So for today, all you guys are going to need is something to write with, a calculator, and a piece of white paper, but you can take any lined paper that you want, it doesn't matter. So every day as we're getting ready for taking the test, I'm going to give you a couple strategies to help you prepare for the test and some things to do during the test to be able to help you get a better score. So one of the first things on this one here is avoid the morning rush. Setting up clothes the night before, getting to school a few minutes earlier than you usually do, just so that you don't have that feeling of running late, because if you're like me, when you're running late, it just kind of sets the whole day, and you're just kind of crabby, things aren't going well. So if you can set your alarm for just a little bit early, have everything ready to go so you can have a very casual morning and feel ready to go on the day when you actually get to testing. This next one is a big one. Get plenty of rest the night before each testing day. Crazy to think, actually, as a middle schooler, you guys really need 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And I actually think some of the recommendations even say 10 hours of sleep, just because your body needs all of that energy because you're growing. There's all these changes happening to your body. So tonight, I would make sure you guys are going to bed at least by 10 p.m. Put those phones away, leave them downstairs outside of your bedroom so that way you're not getting distracted by any texts or Snapchats or Instagrams that you guys are getting. So that way you can focus on your sleep and get a good quality sleep. And actually, I'm going to say along with this, sleep that you get even 2 nights before you take the test is really, really important. Also, make sure that you're eating a good nutritious breakfast each morning of the test. Milk with cereal, eggs, and fruit are good examples. Hot Cheetos and candy are not good choices. The reason for it is if you eat a good breakfast like milk or eggs or fruits, you're getting good protein that's going to hold off your hunger, so that way you don't get to the middle of the test and your stomach is just growling. To my 4th hour students, you guys know that when you get to my class, a lot of you guys need a snack and you're really, really hungry. You guys are going to be testing during 4th hour. So I want you guys to try to eat a better breakfast because you are not going to be able to eat during the testing session. Things like hot Cheetos, candy, donuts, even bagels, they actually give you a sugar rush. So after you eat them, you have all of this energy and then you crash as soon as all of that sugar leaves your body and you're tired, and that would happen during your testing session. So try to find something really good to eat for breakfast. The other test-taking strategy we're going to take a look at is always listen to the directions given by the teacher. So before you guys are going to start, we're going to give you guys some directions. Make sure you actually listen to them. They might have some really good things to tell you about what to do towards the end of the hour, what to do when you're finished, what to do when you're at the end of a section. So make sure you listen to them. Also, we struggle with this one. Read the directions written on the test. Sometimes in the directions it helps you to answer the question and to answer the question correctly. Read the question and all answer choices before marking anything. Don't just assume, oh, I think I have an answer that works. Check them all first. Also, read the directions or read the question, because maybe it is find the one that's not true or find the one that's false. So make sure you're reading the question so you're answering it correctly. And always ask the teacher if you do not understand the directions. So if the teacher is giving some directions and you don't understand them, raise your hand and we can come over and hopefully clarify for you. So big thing, follow the directions. I can't stress that enough, especially with this class. That's something you guys struggle with. Hence, forgetting to round. Make sure you're rounding correctly. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to review just a few concepts that we learned throughout the course of the school year. We're going to answer these questions. And then after that, we're just going to look at some multiple choice questions that you might see when you get to the MCA test. So one of the skills that we're going to take a look at today is reviewing is how do we find the percent of a number. Now, as far as for notes today, you don't have to worry about writing down this if you don't want to. What the purpose of the piece of paper is for you guys to try to work out the problem on your own, and then we can kind of check it together. But I'm not in class today, so it is going to be more of a lecture style thing where you are going to work out the problem with me. And then at the end of every question, if the sub can pause it to see if anyone has questions, like you're not sure how we got the answer type of thing, you can definitely do that. When I'm back in class, it'll be more of a you guys working, and then we put the answer on the board type of thing. Okay? So this first one, we're going to look on how we find the percent of a number. This one was chapter 7, if you're going back into your notes to take a look at it. Remember, there are 2 strategies for finding the percent of the number. I'm going to show you the strategy that most of you guys used first, and that was with our percent proportion. So this one, it says, at Springs Middle School, 34% of the students are in band. If there are 578 students who attend the middle school, how many of them are in band? So when we learned percent proportion, remember it was the part over the whole equals the percent over 100. So I know that the 34 goes here because that's the percent over 100. Now I have to decide, is this 578, is that part of the school or is it the whole school? So here's a hint. There are 570 students who attend the middle school. So hopefully you guys are thinking, oh, that's the whole middle school. And I want to find the parts that are in band. So then from here, we cross multiply to solve. So 100x equals multiplying 578 times 34. We end up with 19,652. And then to solve this one-step equation, we divide by 100. So x equals 196.52 students. Now, for this one here, notice that there's 0.52. We can't really have part of a student, so just be aware this won't be the exact answer that you would find as a multiple choice. The multiple choice would either round up and say 197 students, or it'll round down and say 196. Either one of those will be answers. It's never going to give you both of them. So you can use process of elimination, which is a strategy we'll learn later this week, to be able to answer, to figure out an answer choice based on that. Okay? The other strategy that you guys learned with this was the percent equation. And that again was the percent as a decimal times the whole will give you the part. So percent times the whole equals the part. So if you calculate that one, you still end up with the exact same answer. So again, just reviewing both methods. Kind of reviewing, since we just talked about proportions, when do you use proportions? We can use them to determine if things are proportional or not proportional. And then we use them to solve some ratios, or when you're working with scales, like scale factor on a map type of thing. So let's look at this example. It says Chris bought 6 pounds of hamburger for $10.80. How much would 15 pounds of hamburger cost at the same price per pound? So this is an example of a ratio that we're going to work with in order to find some missing information. So what we're going to do is, remember our first fraction was always what we know. We know he had 6 pounds, and he got that for $10.80. So that's what we know he did. Now he's just kind of curious, how much would he spend if he had 15 pounds? So remember, when you're writing your other ratio in the proportion, labels across the numerator and labels across the denominator have to be the same. So that forces this 15 pounds to be in the numerator of the second ratio. And we want to know the cost, so the x will go here. And then, just like our last one we were looking at, we cross multiply to solve. So we have 6x equals 162 dividing by 6. So x equals $27. So Chris would expect that he knows he's going to pay $27 if he ends up needing 15 pounds of hamburger. Okay, I'm not totally sure what happened here, but my slide is obviously cut off, but that's okay. We'll go with it. What this says on here, this is a review of stuff that we actually did in class yesterday. Rational numbers, remember, any numbers that can be written as a fraction. Remember, they end or they can repeat. And irrationals are numbers that cannot be written as a fraction. So that's a review of what we talked about yesterday in class. And the directions that were supposed to be on here, again, they're cut off, and I just wrote down the examples at the bottom. What I want us to do is we're going to circle the numbers that are irrational. So we're going to circle, and that's really messy, I apologize, but which of these numbers are irrational? So let's look at pi. Pi, is that a number that ends or repeats? Nope, we've talked about this one. Pi is a number that goes on forever and ever, so it's considered to be irrational. This next one is 0.18 with this line above it, so that indicates the 1/8 repeats. So it goes 0.18. Let me start over with that. 0.18, 18, 18, 18, and it keeps repeating. So if it's repeating, this one is rational, so we don't want to choose that one. Square root of 5. Use your calculator for that one. Can you take the square root of it? And does it end or does it repeat? Some of you may have already done that. Hopefully you notice that that one does not end or repeat. So that one is also irrational. And last but not least, 7/8. This one is already a fraction. So if it's fraction, it's automatically rational. So it doesn't fall into the list of numbers that we would like. The next thing on here, you guys are going to get a copy of this for your homework assignment. This again is just a copy of the formulas that you will have when you guys take the MCA test. So just so you know, every lesson that we have will have this on here. You will also get a copy that you can hold on to that's bright and yellow, so it'll stand out for you. All right, let's take a look at some of these here. So these are now multiple choice questions, questions that you might see when you take that MCA. So it says Carmen received the following scores on her last 6 homework pages: 23, 24, 20, 19, 19, and 21. What is Carmen's mean homework score? So do you remember on the Chromebooks and on the computers, we talked about highlighting? Mean is a word that I might highlight because that's a really important part for this. Mean, again, is another word for average. So I want to find the average of those numbers. Now, unfortunately, that formula is not on our sheet, so this is something you have to have memorized. Average is where you add all the numbers together and divide by how many numbers there are, and it's 6. Now remember on here, you have to do this in 2 steps. You have to first add, and if you add in that numerator, you do end up with 126, and then you can divide by 6. And when you do so, you get 21. Now remember that this number, the mean or the average, has to fall for sure in between the smallest and the biggest number. And 21 does, so that answer makes sense. Now let's take a look at a circle chart working with our percents. This was lesson 7.8. Stacy has $350 in her savings account, and this circle graph here talks about her savings account and how it's broken into. She's allocating a certain percent to how she's earned the money. How much money came from babysitting? So here, 20% came from babysitting. So I'm working with percent, so I'm thinking a percent proportion. You could also do a percent equation. So I'm going to put that percent in my second fraction. 20 over 100. Then I have to figure out the part and the whole. Does this 350 represent all of her savings or just part of it? Hopefully you guys are thinking that is the whole, and we're finding the parts. Cross multiplying. 100x equals, multiplying in the other direction, you end up with 7,000. Dividing by 100, x equals 70. And that's one of my answer choices. I know a few of you, again, don't like the percent proportion, so the percent equation is, again, where you take that percent, but as a decimal, times the whole, and that will give you the parts. And again, you'll end up with the exact same answer either way. So whether you prefer the percent proportion or the percent equation, same answer. All right, continuing on with our proportions. This one, Terry reads 6 pages of his reading book in 18 minutes. How long will it take him to read a story that has 150 pages? So again, this one here, I'm thinking about his rate. So that's a cue that I'm going to do a percent proportion. A proportion. So two fractions that are equal to each other. First fraction is always what we know. What did Terry for sure do? He did 6 pages in 18 minutes. What do we want to know? How long it took him to do 150 pages. So 150 goes on the top here because these both then have a label of pages. And the X goes down here to find the number of minutes. And again, cross multiply. 6x equals 2,700. Divide by 6. So x equals 450. So if he has 150 pages, he's going to take about 450 minutes to read that whole story then. Next one. Tammy is planting a garden that is 30 feet long. How many inches long is the garden? So she has it as 30 feet, and I want to know how many inches is that. So when you're trying to go between units, that's going to indicate, again, a proportion. What do we know about feet and inches? Like, how many feet are in an inch? Or how many inches are in a foot? Hopefully all of you guys are thinking, Mrs. Haugen, there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So again, that's what we know. And our second one is going to be what we want to find. I need to plug in this 30 feet. Again, labels have to be the same as you go across. So the 30 feet must go down here and X goes on top. And then we cross multiply. 12 times 30 is 360. 1 times X is 1X. Dividing by 1, X equals 360 inches. Next one. On a road map, the distance between city A and city B is 7.25 inches. So I'm just going to kind of draw a picture of that. Here's A, B is somewhere over here, and between them is 7.25 inches. I want to know what is the actual distance. If the map scale is 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches equals 35 miles. So again, I'm trying to find some information, and using a map, it's called a scale. So that is a ratio or that is a proportion that we're going to write. Again, the first part is always what we know. That's going to be your map scale. So you're going to have 2.5 inches over 35 miles. Now, those two could be flipped. I just put inches first because it came first for the scale, but it doesn't matter. Just as long as you remember the labels have to be the same as you go across the numerator and the denominator. So the 7.25 inches must go on the top, and X goes in the bottom, and we will cross multiply with that. So you have 2.5x equals 35 times 7.25, 253.75, dividing by 2.5. Those two cities are really 101.5 miles apart. All right, next one. Attendance at a new public school has increased 15%. If last year's population was 312 students, how many students enrolled this year? Now, as I read this one, a key word in here is that something increased. So I need to find out how much it increased by, and then I'm going to add it to what the original population was. So that is telling me that, again, I'm doing our percent proportion for this. My percent is 15 over 100. And the population, this was the population, so that's going to be my whole. And I want to find the parts. Again, you could set this up as a percent equation, and I'll write that on the side. You will end up with the exact same answer if you set it up this way as well. Cross multiplying, 100x equals 4,680. Divide by 100, x equals 46.8. Now, some of you might be in a panic. You might be like, that's not one of my multiple choice answers. What the heck? Remember, percent increase is a two-step problem. You have to find the amount that it increased. So we're increasing by 46.8. But to find the total, how many students are this year now, I have to add it to the original. So I'm going to take 312 plus the 46.8. And you end up with 358.8 students. So the multiple choice answer that I'm going to pick, because they rounded up to the next whole person, is choice B. Number 7, this one talks about interest rate. 5 years ago, Maria deposited $500 in a simple interest account. And the interest rate is 7.25%. How much money is now in Maria's account? Now this one I probably should have put on here the formula for you, because I know that's going to be given to you in an equation like this. So I'm going to give you the simple interest equation. That was I equals P RT. Again, where I is the amount of interest, P is the principal, R is the rate as a decimal, and T is time in years. So let's plug in. I don't know how much interest, but we know she deposited $500. Her rate is 0.0725, because again, that has to be as a decimal, and times the 5 years that she had that in her account. Typing that into your calculator, being very careful you type it in correctly, you find that the interest is 181.25. Now, that is an answer choice. It is choice A. But, again, this is the amount of interest that she earned. How much is now in her account? Is interest added into your account or subtracted? In a savings account, that is a good thing, so it is added. So I have to take her original balance and add in that interest. And that gives us her new balance of $681.25. So this is an example where you have to make sure you read the whole question. If you just assume you're just finding interest, you're going to miss this question. You have to make sure you're answering the question, because it says how much money is now in her account. So you want to make sure that you're actually answering that question. All right, number 8. This one here, the questions, I'm going to let you know, this one is kind of a tricky one. I had to look at this one a little closely. Number 8 gives us a histogram. So again, a histogram shows us some intervals down at the bottom here of 30 women who completed a 5K road race. So this shows that the number of women who completed it between 20 minutes up to 24 minutes. So that would even include like 24 minutes and 59 seconds. They're still including it in that interval. And then 25 to 29, and so on and so forth. So which statement is true based on the histogram? Let's go through each choice. And again, we're looking for true, so we want to find which one is true. 11 women ran the race in less than 29 seconds. So less than 29 would be like they ran 28 seconds, they ran 26 seconds. So can I answer that? Does this tell me, like this interval here, do I know how many people ran that in 28 seconds? I don't. Because again, this 29 goes all the way up. It includes 29 minutes and 50 seconds, 29 minutes and 58 seconds. So I can't answer it from this question because of the fact that 29, it is the end of an interval, but it also includes those seconds above it. So not choice A. Choice B says 17 women ran the race between 29 and 39 seconds. So let's see here. 29. 29 is here, falls in this interval, and up to 39. Well, on here again, let's look at the intervals. Do the intervals work between 29? Well, we don't know in this interval here how many of them ran 29. We don't know exactly. So because of that, I can't use choice B. So now let's take a look at choice C. It says 19 women ran the race in over 29 seconds. There's that interval with 29. Again, for this one, over 29 would be 29 seconds, or 29 minutes and 1 second. We don't know how many of them ran in this interval over 29, so I can't use choice C. Choice D says, well, hopefully this is our last choice. Hopefully this is the right one. It says 9 women ran the race more than 35 seconds, or 35 minutes. So 35 minutes is the start of this interval this interval right here. So it's the start of it. So I could at least figure out how many did it in 35 or more. Let's see if the number matches up with 9. Let's see here. It looks like 7 did in this interval and 2 did in this interval. That adds up to 9, so that's choice D. Now, I'm not going to lie. This question is a tricky question. I'm not going to lie on this one. So do your best. See if you can rule things out. With the histogram, they're really trying to make sure that you understand the starts and ends of intervals is what they're going to be looking for. To me, this question's tricky because of the minutes piece. I personally would have set this up different because I don't think that this is a great way to represent it. But if you kind of understand the idea of looking at the beginning and ends of intervals, you're going to be just fine. Okay, number 9. We're getting there with these. Hang on, you guys. I know this isn't the most exciting day in the world, but hang on. Number 9 says use the fact that 1 kilometer is about 0.62 miles to find how many kilometers are in 100 miles. Ooh. So again, I'm working with a scale, so I'm using a proportion. Writing what I know, the scale that's given is 1 kilometer is 0.62 miles. And I want to know how many kilometers for 100 miles. So putting an X here, and let's cross multiply. 100 equals 0.62x dividing by 0.62. So you end up with x equals 161.3 kilometers. Now again, that's not an exact answer choice, but they're just trying to figure out about how many, and choice C is definitely the closest. They just rounded down to the nearest whole number. All right, taking a look at this one. This is one that we could have done in our probability unit, and I'm going to show you this one because I don't think we talked about this one in our lesson. It says, if you have a square board like the one below, what is the probability of throwing a beanbag through the square hole in the middle? So some of you guys might at home play a game called bags or cornhole or something. That's kind of this idea. Some key things with this one is it talks about that it's a square board. So we know that for each unique square that the sides are going to be the same. So I know that this one also is 20 and this is 5. So to find the probability, we find the area of both squares. So the area of my big square I find by taking length times width, so 20 times 20, which is 400. And then you find the area for the small, which is 5 times 5, and it's 25. To find the probability, you're going to take the smaller number and divide by the bigger one. So with this one, because basically what we're doing when we learned our probability, this is what we want to happen out of what can happen, is basically what that is. So when you divide for this one, you should end up with choice D. So basically you have about a 6% chance of getting the beanbag in that square hole for that board. Not a great chance, but it's a chance. All right, this one kind of relates to one that we did at the earlier part of class when my slide was all messed up. This one here, we're circling numbers that are rational. Are rational numbers numbers that can be written as a fraction or no? Hopefully you're all thinking yes. So we're going to make a note here. These can be fractions. So 4 divided by 9. Can that be written as a fraction? Or, if you're not sure, divide it and figure out, does that decimal repeat? If it repeats, it is rational. And in choice A, that is rational. If we're working with square roots, always take the square root of the number and see what it is. Square root of 121 is 11. So if it's a whole number, that is rational. Can you take the square root of 29? You can, but it's a decimal that goes on forever and doesn't repeat. Not rational. And choice D. This one has the 4 that repeats. So if it repeats, it is automatically rational. Review of how do we identify ordered pairs on a coordinate plane. We want to find what's the ordered pair for point B. For this one, you want to make sure that you move left or right first. So you run before you fly, I think is how we talked about it. So I go back to -1. So that rules out all of them except for choice B. And we go down to -2. So choice B is the correct answer. And our last one for today, this is the one where we are plugging in numbers into the variables and evaluating. This is one hopefully you could do without a calculator. Writing this expression exactly as I see it, but when I run into a letter, filling in the correct number. Negative C is 9 minus D, which is 14. This one is probably one they'd ask you to do without a calculator. I would first keep, change, change. Then I would sing our little song. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger number, then you'll be exact. So on here, signs are the same, so we are going to add and keep. So we end up with 23 when we add. Keep the negative, so -23 is our answer. And be careful again when you're adding this one. Some students will struggle with that one. So here's what you guys are going to do then for the rest of the hour and for your homework tomorrow. For my 4th hour class, you guys are going to need to do practice test 1 through 3 due on Friday. 7th hour, you guys are just doing practice test number 1 for tonight because I will see you the next couple days. So I'm just going to assign you guys 1 each night. If you finish those 10 questions, you're more than welcome to work ahead. So if you do get more done for the next day, than you have left to do later on. But in any case, you guys are working quietly. Feel free to use your notes. But I want you guys to do it independently because I want to know what do you know, not what someone who can help you with. You will have an opportunity to make corrections to it after the first go around. Okay? If you have any questions, 7th hour, I will see you guys tomorrow. 4th hour, see me during prime time the next couple days if you have any questions.